Welcome back, everyone, to Fierce Honest Hearts. I'm Heidi. With me is Fadista. And let's see, where do we want to begin? So you know what I want to start out with? I want to start out, because I've been putting this at the end. So I want to start out with, we would appreciate it if you hit subscribe or like and comment. And then, of course, share us with your loved ones if you feel like this would serve them. We would be deeply grateful from the bottom of our hearts. Yeah, that would feel really good. Yeah, feel really good. Thank you. So I'm going to start off with a check-in, and what I'm going to start off with is a gratitude to my bestie here, Fadista, for really beautifully holding incredible space for me for the last several days. And I say this because it's important to me to say it. It's important for you to hear it. And also, I'm aware, because I grew up in a home where let me just say this, it was as relational as it could be. And I didn't know what I was missing until I cultivated this friendship and another friendship. And so it feels different because it is different. Like the relationship is different because it's different, because what we have founded and what we have, the structure that we've created, all of those things. And so for, to get your text yesterday and to get your text earlier today and just checking in with you, that kind of thing, as opposed to what I got from someone else, which didn't feel relational, and it was very familiar and familial. Yeah. So I want to put that out there. And I also want to say that it's interesting because I've seen this meme a lot, this phrase a lot recently, which is no response is a response. And so I have made the very conscious choice to use my sacred pause, use my sacred silence for me and take care of me. And really knowing, and so knowing that it is impactful. I don't know how it will impact, but I know it's impactful to use the sacred silence, the pregnant pause, whatever metaphor you want to use. And to do that, for not to be passive aggressive, but to do it in a way where I am taking care of me. Because I know the last while season, it's been a really long season, has been at times a shit show, at times really dark and deep, at times a little bit lighter, like it has really covered the gamut. And right now, because I've experienced so much, I'm taking the time that I need to come back to me. And so I'm sharing this also with the audience, and I'm curious to know if anyone else has had this kind of experience where you have been going through something for a long period of time, and it's over, like the part of it's over, and then you're like, oh, it's time for me to come home to myself. And that will take it takes processing, and it takes time, and there's grief with it because it's an ending, like all of it. There's so much involved in it. And I think the most important thing, like I said, is to take the time for myself, but also to notice all of the intricacies. And I haven't even probably covered a quarter of them because there's been so many. But I'm noticing, I'm like seeing this and seeing this. I'm like, okay, all right, I'm noticing this, and I'm seeing who shows up for me and how they show up for me. So I know this is a long check-in, but I just felt that was really important to say and to recognize. And maybe, 30 minutes before we started recording, I was feeling some anxiety. And then I was like, oh my God, but I get to be with her. Right. And I felt so excited. I was getting excited. I was like, oh, it's so calming to me to, because I know that people are watching, but for you and I, it's just you and I right here. Right. So it's intimate, and it can be a little scary, that we have people watching, but I'm like, this is important, really important stuff. So anyway, I'm going to land there for now.
Oh my gosh, that was so rich. And thank you. I feel so honored. I feel so touched to be someone that you let in during difficult times, that I can be of any support without caretaking, right? It's a big, big distinction there. Like support and not like rescuing. Um, yeah, because I have so much faith in you and just love knowing that I get to just like cheer in your corner, right? And then that's like it's an honor, it's a privilege, it's a gift. It's also really soothing for me to have those opportunities, and then we regulate each other even when we're both in it, right? But there's been weeks where like life has thrown us both curveballs, and yet there's something really regulating and synergistic about our friendship.
Yeah.
Because that's what we've cultivated, that this
Yeah.
container is safe and regulating. So, yeah, thank you. I just feel so touched. And Lord knows that has also been you for me in instances. What a gift. What a freaking gift. Yeah. And I also just want to name how springy and goddessy you look with like your hair down and these gorgeous flowers behind you, and it's just Beltane. So like my mind's on this like flowering of late spring, and yeah, it's just really sweet to see you in that maybe a little more relaxed state.
Yeah. Yeah.
I even heard the teeniest like little bit of a drawl, which often happens when we're more relaxed. We're not so sympathetic.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I wish I could hug you for real.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Check in. Wow. I think I'm just really arriving with you. It's been a full day since 9 o'clock, most of it on Zoom, and some of it coaching, some of it teaching, some of it being a student, like all good things. Um, and I'm noticing my energy is low today, like unusually low. So I know I know what diet I'm going to be having this evening to help with that. And maybe just this place of, I have two thoughts at the same time. One is knowing myself well enough to know what I need seems invaluable. I'm not quite sure how people do otherwise, right? Like if you don't know yourself, if you don't know your needs, if you don't know how to pick yourself out from a slump or have friends that can help you, like what happens? Like I just don't have a reference point anymore.
Mhm.
And I can get in touch with those times when maybe I was more alone and less self aware.
Mm.
Um, and it took a lot more to kind of claw out of those energies.
Mhm.
So, yeah, just feeling compassion there. And then knowing, even as I came in here tired, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to receive and refuel and recharge with you. How does that happen? Like, the math doesn't add up, right? I'm a math person,
Yeah.
but somehow it does. And I get really excited about that. Like, how could I show up tired and leave completely recharged? What's going on here? Like, there's a scientific mind in me that like wants to know. Is it mirror neurons? Is it entanglement? Are we just inseparable? Am I getting vibes from you? Are you getting vibes from me? Like, what is this marvelous thing that happens here?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if this wasn't the kind of friendship we had, I'd probably have canceled.
Oh, 100 times over. Absolutely. Yes.
Right? Like I'm already exhausted. Now I'm going to have to give more maybe without receiving. And it's just not the case here. So I think I'm extra grateful on a day like this to feel like, oh, we, we talk to our audience about what's the work, but the work can be really subtle. Week after week, checking in, year after year, until something really strong, I think of a tree, right? It's like little acorn, little sapling, it's not quite there. And then you look around one day and you're like, damn, that's
There's
a
a
pretty
tree.
strong oak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm kind of feeling that between us is like, I know this wasn't overnight
Right.
and I know the efforts, and yet there's like a real fruitfulness to it now.
Yes. All of
Mhm.
that. And so fascinating. So I kind of, I mean, so those of you who don't know our story, maybe we could just share a little bit about that. Yeah.
It's like 3 years ago we started these calls, right?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We did. Yeah. So Fidista and I met at a grief retreat weekend,
Mhm.
and we were anyway, and in the retreat, we were brought mate there were small groups created, and we happened to be in the same small group. And I felt this kinship, I felt this connection to Fidista, and I think we pretty quickly friended each other on Facebook, pretty
Mhm.
quickly, right? And then every once in a while we would message, blah, blah, blah. And then I think it was you where you said, let's have a tea date. I'm like, okay, let's have a tea date. And we did, and then, and that would happen maybe once every few months. And then
Yeah.
the timeline was getting close, like we were doing it more on the regular. I was like, I know that this is the way that I felt. I want more.
Mhm.
I want to spend more time with her, even though we are, I don't know, maybe 150 miles apart, 175 miles apart. This is a great way to
Mhm.
engage. And so then it became a weekly thing, and we were having these incredible conversations.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I don't think this is happening in the on the regular with a lot of people, like this
Right.
kind of connection. Um, and so I wonder what it would like to be a role model, to model this for others so that others know it is possible, right? And so again, using all of the tools, but also really our intuition. Because I got a download that, and I was like, podcast, really? Oh, are you sure about this? And the only doubt was like, oh my God, this feels really vulnerable, because it is vulnerable, right? To share ourselves in this way, and that others really can learn. Like others can learn from our experience. And so when I mentioned it to you, I don't remember your reaction. I really don't. I don't, and I mean, you can certainly share that if you want. I don't remember your reaction, but it was in a short amount of time that we were like, okay, we're going to go
Mhm.
live.
Mhm.
And we did. And I think this episode is 106. I'm pretty sure it's 106.
Oh,
I know.
wow.
I know. I know.
Wow. Well, what I'm remembering, and thank you for sharing our story because it's really sweet to hear it, through your eyes, and at your behest, we made it more consistent. It might have been with the pandemic and like, hey, I think we could use like more support with each other. So you had that foresight.
Mhm.
And then I think you also were like, we speak really deeply here, and I want to model this kind of friendship for others. Let's record it. And I think I was probably in some level of like, eek. Yes, and eek is
Mhm.
normally my inner response to certain things. And before we went on Facebook Live, there was a while we were recording them in Zoom and uploading them to YouTube.
That's right.
And then you brought up wanting to go live, or I did. And it was like a whole other edge to
Yeah.
stretch. And then you also brought in, hey, you bring a little bit more of yourself to our private check-ins than you do to our podcast. And if we're going to go live, I need you to bring all of you
Mm,
to the live show. And there was another like, yes, eek. Growth opportunity in that.
mhm.
And then here we are, right?
We are.
But
Yeah.
it's like here we are having built such a solid friendship, which I celebrate. And then I go, oh, yeah. And that was 3 years of consistent farming,
Mhm, mhm.
right? Like this harvest doesn't come out of thin air.
Right.
It comes from like our hands have been in the dirt. We've dealt with the weeds and the crunchy things and made sure the soil had good pH and planted good things, like
Mhm.
very conscious friendship
Yeah.
here. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and I also want to add that our values are very similar.
Mhm.
So the definition of commitment is similar. Like we're both really, we decided that once we're in, we're all in, committed to it. The
Mhm.
consistency of showing up, the importance of showing up,
Yeah. The
um,
discipline of
the
it. Too.
discipline, because it takes it again, that's part of the structure. That takes discipline to put it on the calendar. Every Monday at 1 o'clock, we have a check-in. Wednesdays, we record the podcast in the afternoon, right?
Mhm.
So to our audience, if you're listening and you want this kind of connection, if you want this kind of relationship, friendship with another person, it is possible. And also know that in order for it to happen, to build the structure, to build the trust, you have to put in the time
Mhm.
and the commitment. Otherwise, it won't work.
Yeah. And this is so counter to something that pisses me off in our culture, which is like the overnight success crap, right? Because whether it's that guy on The Voice, we're like, wow, he wanted to sing and then now he's getting a record deal. And it's like, yeah, but he's been singing in clubs for 12 years. Like,
Right,
let's not forget
right.
that there is a real, I'm old school here, there's a real roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty, learn,
Mhm.
and grow with someone. And there's no shortcuts,
No,
right? If you think you're gonna, I'm thinking of me in my early 20s, like smoochy smooch cheeks and go to brunch with someone and be very laissez-faire about it, that's not gonna grow depth.
right.
Like there could be consistency without depth, I guess is what I mean to say.
Yeah,
Could always show up to the same things, but are you intentional
right.
about what you're creating? And it's totally possible.
It is.
And it's fun to create.
It is. I think the reason I'm laughing is because what you're saying, it rings so true and it rings and I feel it deeply in my bones and it feels really good. Like it feels so good. I'm like, I don't want to say I can't believe, but I have moments where I'm like, I have manifested this. I've, worked on it. It's made it happen. And still I have moments where like, I can't believe how beautiful it is and
Mhm.
how lovely and sweet um and I would even add mostly easy because we've
Oh,
done.
yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And how quickly, because we just talked about this maybe last week or the week before, but how quickly we can work through things now. Like
Yes.
it's incredible. I'm like, wow, my shit is so less shit. Like it's just because I recognize it that much quicker because I want to, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
also
owning
think
it.
our speed comes from care, right? Because it feels miserable to me to be in a rupture with you.
Yeah, me too.
Even if it's small, like even if it's just like, oh, that was kind of crunchy, but there was no conflict. There was
Yeah,
just like, oh, that wasn't our normal ease,
yeah,
right? That wasn't our normal flow.
right.
Um, I feel my care online for you immediately to be like, how do I soothe? How do I reassure? How do I like just remind us of all the good we've created, even though right now, like our, our nervous systems are kind of weird for some reason. How
Right.
do I still, and this feels easier to do in my friendships than sometimes it does in my partnership,
Sure.
right? So that's also interesting for me to see. Like, I can access my heart quicker in conflict with friends. And then when it's even like higher stakes
Mhm.
and has years of stuff, like with my partner, it's like, oh, I have to like sometimes pry my heart open a little
Yeah.
instead of it being like a little clamshell already. I have to be like, like
Yeah.
this isn't good for, softness and connection or whatever. And it's hard.
It
So
is.
just also holding, I guess I'm saying that to say there's a distinction between your high stakes friendships and how you might be able to do some of the tools, and then your high stakes partnership. Like w- that one might be stickier for some
Mhm.
people.
Mhm.
Um, and depends on how long you've also been together, right? Like,
Right.
what's
Right.
under that rug, so to
Right.
speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. I love that we're celebrating us. That feels important to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Me too. It feels really good. It feels really right.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah. And I want to veer off a little bit. It's similar. So I was in a conversation over the weekend with some women, and one of the women brought up celebrating things that we don't typically celebrate. So,
Mm.
so like when young women, when young girls start puberty, right? A lot of
Mhm.
times there's a celebration for their first period. A lot of that's becoming
Aw.
more of a thing, right? And so she mentioned so when we end a relationship and we make the choice to go forward as a single person and to heal that part of ourselves that was hurt or went through
Mhm.
it, survived it, or what, like, why don't we celebrate that? Like, why don't we celebrate being single? Because that's really cool and that's really important that
Mhm.
we celebrate the end of a relationship because we left it behind and we're still going through some stuff. And then also, celebrating things like menopause, right? That's a big one.
Mhm.
And um because there's so many, I want to say stages getting to it. And
Apparently.
then what?
I said apparently.
As you know, right? Like there are a lot of stages to get there. And then once you're through it, I mean, because
Mhm.
it's this whole thing. But anyway, for those who listening, I know you get it. But anyway, um, yeah, to celebrate. Like once
Mhm.
I'm in it, oh my gosh, this is this is the ending of something, the beginning of something
Mhm.
else, but certainly the ending of something. And that's really important too. So
Yeah.
um, so I'm really glad that we're celebrating our friendship. It's really sweet. And then I also wanna I would be curious, and maybe women out there who are listening have celebrated some of these things. So if you have, I want to know about it. Like that
Mhm.
feels really exciting to me. And it feels also like something is shifting.
Mhm.
We celebrate the things that we don't normally celebrate. Let's flip that switch. Let's do something different because I think we celebrate, it's wonderful when someone's pregnant and has a baby and there's a shower or a wedding and like engagement, baby name revealing, baby, like all of that. And it feels like it's all over social media. And I'm not shading that. I'm like, that's great. It's beautiful. But I want to I want there to be more celebrations for important milestones, like I just mentioned. Yeah.
Yes, I'm all for it. I'm feeling like it sounds like untraditional celebrations, but to make them traditional, right?
Yes. Thank
I
you.
think of I didn't want to have kids, so that was not the path for me. And my business is like, it used to be a baby, it's a toddler now. And I remember feeling a real source of pride and accomplishment when my business survived year one. and year 2, not always promised, right? And began to thrive. Like when I hit year 3 of my business, I was like, I want to celebrate, right? And we don't have
Yes.
business showers.
Right.
We don't have like, I'm going to have a shower for my business because
Right.
actually it is the love of my, like, it is my passion. It is my baby.
Yeah.
And I started thinking like what that does when, how do I say this concisely? When we only celebrate getting engaged, getting married, having a baby shower, having a baby, buying a house, right? Those feel like pretty clear
Mhm,
traditional
mhm.
milestones. What are we saying to the people who chose differently?
Exactly.
There's a little one down quality to it.
There
And
is.
and again, I want everyone to celebrate that like a shit ton.
Yeah.
But if we don't also include, hey, I chose to get out of a toxic relationship,
Yeah.
let's celebrate. Hey, I had a completion with my partner of 20 years. We're divorcing in a healthy way.
Mhm.
Let's celebrate. Hey, I my business made it through to year 3. Like, let's party, right? Like, or I'm thinking of men too. Maybe they don't have the same biological milestones. But what if they did? What if young men got a rite of passage? Because that's missing for young men
Mhm.
from other men, grown men. What if middle aged men had time with elder men, right? Like sacred sons, for example.
Right.
What if a man sold his business or a woman sold her business and thought, I'm free and wanted to celebrate that,
Mhm. Right.
right? I recently saw a video of like what was called like a pink party, and it was like a celebration of becoming cancer free. And
Uh,
I thought,
mm,
yes,
yes. Yes.
of all the things,
Right. Right.
yes, right? So something in me, somewhere in the equity, equality, having people not feel diminished, like let's bring some like celebration ideas up
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
Thank you
that.
for sharing that,
Yeah. You're welcome.
right? I think of indigenous tribes. This is my assumption is that some connect to the medicine wheel. Oh, you've gone from maiden to mother. You've gone from mother to whatever. The next one is like chrono or whatever. Like there is a way of clocking, transitions
Mhm.
that maybe we bring back. I don't know.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love that.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Let's think outside the box is what I'm is my headline.
Yes. Yeah.
Box is nice, but there's more.
Right. Right.
I
Yeah.
think of some of our guests. It's like, what if we celebrate leaving a religion that you no longer feel aligned with? What if we celebrate like you reclaiming your sexual pleasure?
Yeah.
Or you coming out truly as who you are? Like just so many. Now that I'm saying that out loud.
Yeah. Yeah.
So help us out here, audience. Whatever feels like something you have celebrated or some idea of celebration that you don't know that you haven't like seen enough of, maybe let us know.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if you celebrate it a little bit, you want to celebrate more
Mm.
and you want to celebrate in a deeper way. Yeah, bring all of it. I would love to hear any and all of those suggestions.
Ooh, and if there's something that you got dropped on that
Uh,
you wanted to have been celebrated for and like
mhm.
people weren't tracking you or you got dropped or they just weren't attuned
Right.
and you kind of quietly celebrated it, like let us celebrate it with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Mm.
Hmm.
I love this conversation. I'm like, this is good. Oh, yeah.
little more rebellion in it too, which I get fueled by because I was in my one of my business calls and goals are such a thing. What are your May goals? What are your third quarter goals? What are your annual goals?
Mhm.
And I think goals can be helpful to set a compass, set direction, but sometimes the goal itself doesn't have a ton of juice for me. Because I
Yeah.
know it's the spiritual quest underneath the goal, not like, oh, I got that thing done.
Mhm.
Um, and I was like, the spreadsheet had a very specific goal orientation, but none of it really landed for me. And so I was like, what if my divine rebel gets to say, I'm not doing these goals.
Mm. Mhm.
This isn't, or at least right now, this doesn't feel aligned for me. I want some spiritual goals for my business the next few months that have nothing to do with how many followers and how many reels and how much money goes into marketing, but has to do with like, what's my spiritual quest here? You know, that feels like those milestones feel worth celebrating.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Um, and I would say, I will speak for myself, of course, but that I feel much more deeply connected to,
Yeah.
and I want to hear more about that,
Mhm.
right? Because there's some depth behind that. There's certainly to it, and some real, uh, I would also say, heart connection
Mhm.
and vulnerability, which I'm all about, even though I'm scared of it most of the time. But um, but certainly relating to, and yeah, uh, yeah, 100%. I like that a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I had to work through, am I allowed to just shrug off? Do I have permission
Mm,
to not do the spreadsheet in a biz course?
mhm.
Right. But being like, there's no juice there for me right now. Why would I? Also, sometimes those metrics feel like vanity metrics, right?
Mm,
Versus like, I want to um, dissolve any imaginary roadblocks I have around speaking,
mhm, mhm.
speaking engagements versus I'm going to have 3 speaking engagements by June. Like,
Yeah.
do you feel the difference? I feel the difference.
Completely. Yeah,
Yeah.
completely.
And I think some people could write, like, I'm going to have 3 speaking engagements by June and still go on that spiritual quest. I just feel
Mhm.
like I just would rather write the goal as the spiritual quest.
Yeah.
Because why
Totally.
would I be doing any of this for just the thing?
For the sake of doing it. Yeah.
No. Yeah. It feels good to let go of some earthly goals.
Say more?
Those metrics, those
Oh,
like,
sure.
right? And
Sure.
to be like, no, actually, that's not what I'm
Right.
about right
Not
now.
what I'm feeling right now.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Ah, yeah.
What's
As
coming
I'm
up for you, friend? I see you taking that in.
Oh, yeah, you see the wheels turning. Um, so the one thing that's coming up for me is flipping that switch and, and switching it up to a more spiritually based doing, right? Or task, however one might want to phrase that.
Mhm.
Um, that feels, I feel much more connected to myself,
Mhm.
and and so not only more connected to myself, but connected to my divine being.
Mhm.
Uh, and has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with my spiritual self.
Mhm.
Uh, because that is where I work to live from every day.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that feels much more in line with who I am as opposed to the other,
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
I just wish we were taught goals like that in
Yeah.
school, or I mean, I guess wherever we learn that stuff, they were very much practical, functional, logistical goals.
Mhm.
And no one was like, does this have juice in it for you?
Yeah.
And then people get down on themselves because they don't complete certain tasks and goals. And it's like, well, maybe there just wasn't enough fire under your ass for that. Because how
Mhm.
did we, how was that set up? You know? Yeah. Like I'm just understanding and in touch with the why underneath it all for me is
Mhm.
getting to learn and grow. And
Right.
if that's not happening, then getting something checked off feels
Yeah.
unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah. So perhaps consider creating a different foundation for those things. If
Mhm,
something is not aligning for you or doesn't feel right for you, yes, it is okay to switch
mhm,
it up to so that it does feel right and good for you.
mhm,
Because if it doesn't, you're going to know it, and you're going to know it pretty quickly. If you don't know it in the moment, you're going to know it pretty quickly as you're doing the
mhm,
work to finish the goal or to get to the goal or the journey of the goal. But yeah, yeah. Mm.
mm. Thanks, friend.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Are you ready to pivot?
Let's pivot.
All right, here we go with our big, uh, big shuffle because it's a lot of cards. Okay, you can go for the whichever one. My middle
Right
finger.
there.
This one.
Yeah. Hmm.
Oh, this is fun. Okay. What's an experience you want us to share together this year?
Um, well, I mean, simply put, I want to see you in person.
Mhm.
Like I want to see you in person. And then to up the ante a little bit, I would love to do a live podcast with you side by side. Yeah.
I love that. Oh, that's so sweet. Well, I had two thoughts. I had three thoughts simultaneously, but maybe this would be a day of it. Um, Definitely to see you in person. I was feeling into like, I don't know why, but like a dance party or something that felt really jubilant, right? But had some activity in
Mm,
it as well.
okay.
Um, and then, yeah, just like really sharing a meal together. There's
Mm.
something I find like fills my heart, around like breaking bread and sharing
Communal.
over a table full of food because I think we all know what it's like to be in that kind of communal setting. And it feels really sweet. So, yes, dance
Oh.
party and a meal.
And then if we have time left, we'll do the podcast live.
Yeah. Thanks, friend. That feels
Or
sweet.
at least an IG live together.
Done.
That would be so easy. Okay, good.
Mhm,
Oh, thank you. So
mhm.
much love to you. Thank you. Thank you.
So much love to you. Thank you.
Do you want to finish this out?
Sure. Yeah. So thank you for anyone watching. Thank you for, um, yeah, just being here, staying with it, learning, growing, hopefully. And we would love to hear from you, whether you were touched by something, whether you were agitated by something, whether you disagree, whether you resonate. Let us see you here. We would really love to know you better and see you in whatever's alive for you. And please like us in our YouTube channel, I believe, and you can subscribe there. There's a button to subscribe. There's also a bell for notifications.
Right.
So if all that feels like something you want to do, go for it. And we'll see you back here next week. So
Thanks,
much love.
everyone. Bye.